What I do know is if people stumble enough, they're gonna run into the truth. And I feel like the fact that everybody's stumbling into what black men need and hear is a huge victory for me because it was cycles where I would go and people wouldn't even mention black men at all, as if we didn't exist. So the fact that people are right now speaking about black men this early in the political cycle is a huge victory.
Hey everybody, this is CL Palmer, and today on the podcast I have Mondale Robinson of the Black Male Voter Project. Today we're going to talk a little bit about Black history and talk a little bit about his organization and some of the good work that he's doing out there. So without further ado, how you doing today, Mondale?
Brother, it's a pleasure to be here with you in this space. And what a time to be alive.
Absolutely. You know, I say every day is a blessing. uh, because I'm here, I'm breathing, I'm sitting, standing. So I'm very grateful, for your presence and today as well. Yeah, man. I guess we could just jump right into it. You want to tell the people a little bit about yourself and a little bit about the Black Male Voter Project?
Yeah, and honestly, bro, if I'm being honest with you, I don't even know if the two can be segmented or siloed, right? And the reason I say that is because, I mean, like as the name implies, I am strictly concerned with the politics of black males
uh,
or black men in this country, right? And I think what that means is everything that happened to me even before I was me. So that means the epigenetic trauma associated with being a black man and how we vote. Is all the reason Black Male Voter Project exists. To make that a little less abstract and more clear, I should say, I grew up extremely poor in Eastern North Carolina. When the world was telling me that North Carolina was this progressive space, I still saw Klan marching on Tuesdays, and my family felt the effects of being poor because my dad had felony conviction from when he was 17 because his father was a sharecropper, and the white boy that he grew up on the farm with, but his dad owned it, smacked my grandmother and knocked off the porch, and my dad reacted. So for 2 years of my dad's life, he was on the run from the Klan. And when he finally came back to North Carolina, they gave him a felony conviction, but nothing happened to that white boy. These are political issues, what it meant to be black and what it meant to be criminal, like, right? So this idea that a white man has dominion, not just over you working on his farm, where they're not really paying you a wage, and it's just a continuation of the plantation. But it's also dominion over how you will be introduced into the criminal justice system. And that introduction followed my dad his entire life, and it affected me so much so that at times I was frustrated being black as a child. Like, damn, why I gotta live like this? Why does it gotta be my existence? And um, that frustration actually, led me to ask a lot of questions. And then I eventually find out through books and traveling and living that my dad was not this anomaly. He was actually the mean. Most black men born in 1949 in the South has or knows somebody very directly in their family that has a very similar story to my dad. So this made me ask a lot of questions. And in asking questions, it led me straight to the politic of America and realizing the trauma associated with the 15th Amendment as it pertains to black men and how nobody talks about that. People want to talk about black men voting habit, but they want to leave out all of the trauma that for every other demographic, they will be like, well, this is the reason, such and such happens, or this is why this person has PTSD around something. A great example of this is the Jewish folk that are descendants of folk who survived the Holocaust. Their DNA has forever been changed by that trauma. And if the Holocaust happened in that short window, imagine what being black male since the 15th Amendment passed, which is like 100 and some years now, 115 plus years. Imagine the trauma associated with being black male, seeing brothers hung from trees, Mega Everest killed in his yard. And our DNA knows that, like, our genome has been rewired because of America's trauma around electoral politics. So for people to show up and say, you need to vote and you need to vote now because it's the most important in your life, or this white man gonna save you, does not ring true to this demographic, which is why so many of black men look at people like they got three heads when you show up 2 months before an election and you've not invested anything in my community. And my lived experience is still one that is so dastardly that we make up the lowest marker of all social wrongs. Seeing and hearing this after 20 years of politics is the reason I created Black Male Voter Project. And I think we do a wonderful job being nothing but vessels to speak, to articulate political strategy and thought that black men are telling us in their own words. So these crazy folk call themselves political consultants can hear and see black men, and not for a vain reason, but because it's human to be seen, right? If you consider that a few thousand years ago that we were hunters and gatherers, and if you were left behind, if you were left unseen by your tribe, then it was a death ticket. And so to unsee black men in electoral politics is a death ticket, and we see that police kill us at higher rates than anybody else. Hell, if you're between the ages of 18 and 30, one of the leading causes, the sixth leading cause, is police. For black men, we're undereducated. We're the only demographic that can be born wealthy or in the middle class and still are likely to experience poverty in our lives. We're over sentenced, over policed, not just in school, I mean prison systems, but also in school. You see black boys overrepresented in special needs, over suspended and over expelled. So I think Black Male Voter Project act as a barricade from black men around all of the noise that the world say are the reasons we don't participate in electoral politics, and then also a mirror on the electoral system for ignoring all the BS that makes it hard to even breathe as a black man in America.
Mm, it's a very powerful statement. I'm still taking everything in that you mentioned so far, and it's like I have so a few different follow ups, and I'm gonna try to keep it quick. But you saying that just really spoke to me because, of course, I am a black man myself, and because I know the generational trauma that comes with the way that people act on a daily basis. Like I can see it when I go and I'm like, bro, what's wrong? It's like something is bothering you that has nothing to do with this situation. And so that really puts me in the mind that, like, yes, this is a lot bigger than just a vote. He's like, you the founding principle of the Black Male Voter Project. What's the biggest thing on the docket to just help get that ball rolling?
Yeah, I think what happens is so many political programs are so transactional when they show up talking to black men. And I think that is the biggest harm to their programs and also their efforts. Plus, on top of that, coming to black men talking about the Democratic Party or any party for that matter is not a successful tactic. This is not to say that black men won't vote for progressive candidates or progressive ideas, because we do. But it is to say that it will not be because of that candidate. It will not be because of that party. It's because of what the issues black men care about and also what they believe is possible. And I think until people see black men like the rest of the world, like you'll catch lies about black men that every election cycle, oh, 20% of black men are going to vote for Republicans, or black men are becoming more conservative. But then you see our voting habit, and it never matches up what people say. And then even we outpace everybody else, and the world don't even talk about that, right? So
Mm.
it's these untruths. They talk about misinformation so much, but nobody's speaking about the misinformation about black men. A great example is in Ohio in 2023. Black men outperform every demographic, including every demographic of women, for women's right to choose. Black men showed up at 88%, whereas the closest demographic to us was black women at 80%. So we outperform women on women right to choose, and we outperform every woman by more than 8%, except for black women, which was at 8%. Nobody said anything about that or yelled that, hey, black men are being great allies for women's right to choose. And we have been saying this since 2022 when Republicans started their shenanigans around Roe v. Wade, that black men were huge supporters, outpacing everybody else. But no white organizations were saying it. So my demographic and my data wasn't good enough for folk to talk about it. And even now I'm seeing, even when black men voting results show it, it's still not enough for people to talk about. So it's this narrative that is killing what could be possible with black men and how we increase our participation. So you ask what's on top of the ballot. Right now we're finding out that, believe it or not, uh, public schools are still a popular issue for black men, and it's not for what like the traditional reason that you think. Like people are thinking about school. Black men want trades back in public school, right? And not just old trades, but also new trades like coding, because it allows them to work from home and skip the microaggression that they have to deal with in the workforce. So we see black men asking for public education to be better funded, but not, like I said, not for the traditional reasons for GEDs or high school diplomas so they can go into college. It's so they can take themselves out of this racist market that don't usually hire them, and when they do, it's usually under they're being underhired, right? Like we're underemployed, if we are even employed. So with the trade, that can't that dignity is replied or applied back to work, and black men are allowed to live and make a livable wage without losing it based on some others microaggressions.
Okay, so you said education is a big thing, and I would second that because I would like to see more trades getting into school when I'm looking at my boys because they're picking stuff up already. Like my son, he's already been talking about becoming a barber, and he's already learning how to like do different hairstyles. Like it's to the point where he don't even ask his mom to do hair anymore. So it's like when kids have the opportunity to experience some of those things hands on, it changes a lot of the trajectory of the things that they can do going forward. So I'm a big proponent of bringing funding to public education like that. Um, so is there a big win that you have had in education so far, or is there um, another big win that the Black Male Voter Project likes to hang their hat on?
Yeah, I think for us, I mean, us. I think the idea that the national conversation right now, this early, people are talking about what black men are going to do is a bigger win for me than personal victories, and simply because I started Black Male Voter Project as a love letter to black men, saying that like, you're not wrong for not participating in the system that does not see and hear your issues. So even though I see MSNBC trying to do it, getting it wrong, using same old political people to do the same old trash speak about black men, even though I see the Democratic Party and their auxiliaries trying to launch efforts to reach black men, even though they're trashing. What I do know is if people stumble enough, they're going to run into the truth. And I feel like that fact that everybody's stumbling into what black men need and hear is a huge victory for me, because it was cycles where I would go and people wouldn't even mention black men at all, as if we didn't exist. So the fact that people are right now speaking about black men this early in the political cycle is a huge victory. As it pertains to our work, though, I mean, our job is to close the participation gap between black women and black men, which is right now somewhere around 12%. But in the states that we work in, that gap is going down. And we want it around 6%. And at 6%, we feel like black community can demand some serious change as it pertains to leadership structure and progressive ideas and what it means to be a progressive candidate.
Mm. Okay, so it's a like one of those greater good wins for sure. That's really just really connecting the dots for people to get out there and turn out because you're right. It is tough for us to get out there. And I do look into people in my demographic. I'm 34 going on 35, and a lot of brothers they working. You know what I'm saying? And it's either go to work or not eat. And we kind of need to do something to break that mindset and just let you know there's a way. There's more options. So I very much appreciate the work that you all are doing in that space. Uh,
Yeah, indeed.
Let me see. I guess before I get into the Black History part of the podcast, I guess I want to kind of ask you a little bit about your own personal Black history because we talked about the Black Male Voter Project, but I didn't ask you about your other job, and that's being a mayor. Now, is it Enfield?
Hmm.
That's how you say it. So you are the
Yep, that's right.
mayor of Enfield, the town of Enfield, North Carolina. Is that where you're originally from?
Yeah, I'm born and raised right there in that little space out in eastern North Carolina, in the northeastern part of the state.
Okay, so you really putting the work in, on the what are the more effective levels, which is local government. So tell me, how does it feel that you are the mayor of your hometown and actually making a difference today?
It is the hardest thing I've ever done. I mean, I've been doing political consultant work for 20 plus years, and I had never thought about going back home to run for office until this white guy from New Jersey came down and tricked the town that basically is 90% black about all these new ideas he had or whatever. And all he was doing is gentrifying the town. So I went home to challenge this idea that you and your white friends are going to buy up my hometown and push black people further away from the little services that they had in infield. So now I'm in the process. Running an election and winning is one thing, but governing is a completely other thing. And sometimes when you govern, those who voted for you will have problems with what decisions you're making. So I'm in that process now where I'm governing, and I'm still watching white America try to hold on to her power structure of a town that is in a majority black county, Halifax County, where Enfield sit is, and also a town that is 90 some percent black. You see this white minority still trying to control, and they're using all of the regular modems where they're loud, where they're calling the local newspaper, and the local newspaper are writing all the stories about them. Plus, they also have the black actors willing to do their bidding. We have a couple board members that are doing the work of the white minority, and trying to couch it in, let's get along, or unity. And I keep reminding people there's no such thing as unity if you don't even acknowledge my existence. Meaning, if you can't tell where I am right now, and if my wholeness bothers you, then you can't be in unity, even if we're holding hands. And then what this led to was when I first got elected in 2022, I tore down a Confederate monument, and in
Mm.
tearing down that monument, the largest Klan chapter in America doxed me, and so I started getting death threats from all over the country, and I saw the community, some of the black community, go along with the white folk, like, oh, that statue wasn't bothering anybody, and like, white. These are people that either work for the white people, or they white people had influence over them in some house. They were renting their houses from them or something, so they could maneuver them or use them as a tool, as we've seen in the past days. So we used to call them on the plantation, them house, but we'll leave that be. Those are the on Harriet, and told on that, you know what I'm saying, and told on Denmark Vesey. So they exist still in 2024, brother.
Mm. Man, that's that's really powerful. I love stories like this, and it really caught my eye when I was just doing my research, just getting to know who you were. I'm just like, oh, this, I knew you was the brother, doing the Black Male Voter Project. Now I'm like, you the mayor too. I'm like, this is the brother mayor that we all need, like in every small town in America. We need this type of movement, man. So, bless you for being willing to put that time in, because it is a sacrifice, to put the needs of others well beyond your own. And so, man, I just
Yeah.
really commend you and applaud you for that.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. And I'm glad you said something about small towns all over America. What people forget is, like, you might think about New York, or Atlanta, or LA, but people forget that in the South, majority of black people we're overrepresented in rural spaces. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of black people are in rural spaces. Rural spaces are uniquely disadvantaged. Like, hospitals are closing, we have less fresh food, we have less resources. So when you have a white population coming trying to gentrify, or people not speaking about rural spaces, especially in the South, then you're automatically putting black people life in jeopardy. Like, that's not hyperbole. Like, people really are living with hospitals 100 miles away because rural hospitals are closing, and it's so dangerous that
Mm.
we don't even have internet to even use telehealth. You know what I'm saying? So people need to really consider, when you're talking about black people, to exclude the black rural experience is to exclude black southerners in a large part.
I'm very familiar on how things kind of just go by the wayside. So just to see you talking about that, it's like, yeah, that just reminds me. It's like, yeah, it's a lot more work to be done. All right, man. So I guess we're gonna let me just take a quick little break, get a breather, then we're gonna come back and talk about Black history. All right, y'all. Welcome back to the podcast. I am CL Palmer, and again, I am with Mondale Robinson, and we have been chatting about the Black Male Voter Project and the good work that he's doing out there. And now we want to talk about a little bit Black history. What is more fitting than talking a little Black History Month with someone as passionate as yourself about the Black male experience? So man, I was very hyped for this. After I saw you on the internet, I was like, I got the guy. This is it. So I guess like my first question would be like what just in general, you know, kind of like what does it mean to have a Black History Month and why is it
Mm,
important that we celebrate it?
mm. So, I mean, in the context of Black History Month, is it's funny as hell that they chose the shortest one,
Mm,
but we'll leave that there
Priest.
for. I mean, it's par for the course for America. But I think if we remind what Woodson said when he created Black History Week, um, was that this is for children, right? Like Black History Month is for the kids. Black adults should be studying Black history all the time, year round, right? So I'm excited that we get this for those who are supposedly younger than us. But what I see is we fail epically when we don't push Black history in January or December or April, right? As an adults, as Black adults, we forget that everything about Black people didn't happen in February, or that February is an important month at some certain parts if we consider what happened with the Greensboro sit-in and February the 1st being that day. So I understand the importance of symbolism, but I also think that we have a job to do to remind people that everything that is American, everything that is good in America has its linkage or a link to Black history. We had a role to play in all of that, including wealth creation for generations, right? For 200 plus almost years, where we couldn't even accumulate it for ourselves. We built houses for the people, right? And
Mm,
people can say what they want to. There's something unique about American slavery when you use race as the base, and people weren't even wealthy and they were owning people to get wealthy. So for me, Black History is a wonderful time for us to instill in our children a foundation about where you find pride in us when a country will not give it to you. This is where you are reminded to the youth. This is where you are reminded that you are as God made you. You are as strong as any other, and if not equal to, damn near surpass. And I think that's not to say that Black people are superior to white people. It is to say that we survive a maniacal institution in slavery. And we did it in a way that slavery didn't break us. It didn't break our dignity, right? Right. It didn't break the Black American. So much so that we bounced back. We bounce when I say bounce back for the first time to where we are right now. And that's just illogical to believe that a people can go from slavery to where Black people are right now without some kind of supernatural help. And that supernatural help, I believe, is definitely Black Jesus. The nappy headed one, not the blonde haired, blue eyed one from Europe. So I think Black history is a reminder of all of that. And then also a reason for us to continue to not stop on the 29th or the 28th of February and go
right.
forth with understanding and helping people understand who we are as a people in general.
Very well said. I definitely want to make sure that all the children out there, if you are watching and listening to this, ask somebody about Black history. If don't just read about it in class, do the little project, but ask people about it because everyone has a unique relationship with Black history. And I do feel like as adults we are the carriers of that history. A
Mm.
lot of the best stories and whatnot are told through orally. So it is very much important that we do that. So I appreciate you
Yeah,
saying
I
that.
mean, we are oral people too, right? Like our history, the griot was an oral person, and this is how history was passed down in our communities for so long. And I think people forget that. So you're absolutely right about the storytelling, the art of learning history through oratory. I would also say this, bro. It is so dangerous for people just to depend on the school system to teach Black history. So I'm glad you said that. I had a friend, a grown ass man, say to me, uh, you know. about Kwanzaa, which is not Black History per se, but it's not in February, but
Yeah.
it's Black History. He said he thought, like, I'm like, yo, let's take time and all sit down and get a group of friends together and talk about what like each day of Kwanzaa mean. And he was like, Kwanzaa, I thought that was a artsy holiday. And that to me is what happens when you allow a school system, a curriculum to tell your history. When Kwanzaa is a powerful conversation, 7 day conversation celebration of how we unite Black people across all geopolitical borders. This is even the purpose why they use Swahili words. It's the most spoken language by Black people, right? It's one of the largest spoken languages in the world, but definitely by Black people. And people don't even, and for somebody to say, somebody to be a Black man of my age, and I'm 44, to say that you thought Kwanzaa was an artsy holiday and not understand what it means is the failure of us not being involved in educating people about who we are.
Facts, and it just kind of brings us full circle, back to the stuff you're trying to do out there in education in the first place. So it's all tied together. Um, Now that we talked a bit about what the history means, so let's talk a little bit about the present day. And you've kind of already talked about this, but what's I guess I'll ask you, for 2024, like I'm sure you want the voter turnout to be as large as possible. Um, but what type of history would you like to make in the present day?
Yeah, I think for me, like if we're talking about history, the only history that is truly for me only measurable is if this country figure out a way to really address those things that are plaguing Black men, even if it's in a microscopic way. Because right now they're not doing a great job at that. Right? They're talking about issues that aren't important to Black men, that aren't moving Black men, and the way they're talking about it excludes Black men altogether. This is why Black men are so turned off with the current political space. So if I'm worried about history or making history this year, is to get the world to see that you have to listen to Black men, and not just Black men who have our skin colors, but those who are concerned with our communities, not those who just started a new organization so they can secure the bag in a presidential election year, but those who have been grinding and listening to Black men for a long time and building up the ability to be called a trusted messenger by Black men, so as to do the bidding of Black men and not for themselves. And I think that happens a lot too. So I would love if at the end of 2024, someone said Mondale made the world hear Black men and see Black men in a way that they had never seen in a presidential election year.
I love it. I will give you all of my support in that effort because as a black man myself, I full heartedly believe in things like that. We need to make sure our voices are heard correctly. I do think, just to kind of put my own personal commentary on it, but I do think when it comes to the black male voice, um, I guess like the more educated or intellectual crowd is a little bit overrepresented in even the elite class, and it usually is the only type of voice that you hear coming from black men. And I do think we need to hear more from the men who are on the ground, like you said, in these communities, moving and shaking and getting people out here. They're the ones that are getting these stories and like knowing exactly what we need and when we need it. So
That's
yeah.
a fact. We when you say overrepresented, it's a fact. If you look at those who are super voters, these brothers like they're out here saying the same issues that the party is saying. These Divine Nine, it's no critique of them, but it's a fact. The Divine Nine, the 100 Black Men, um, the Masons, and the Boule, all these organizations, they're speaking for a demographic of Black men that they resonate with. Unfortunately, it's not the majority of Black men. This is why, if you look at the brothers who are already registered to vote in this country, and it's 9,600,000 Black men that are already registered to vote in this country across 50 states, right? Over 50% of them are non-voters, meaning they have not voted in the last four presidential elections. And if you add only voted in one election or none of the last four, then we're up around 70%. That is a critique of the system. That is a critique of the black men who say they're speaking on these brothers' behalf when they don't see themselves. That is not a critique of black men per se. It is the ones that are in the party, ones that are part of the political structure already not doing the bidding of black men. So I think the system has failed epically at reaching this demographic of black men, and they've done that because they feel comfortable with those who wear suits, and they feel comfortable with those who have on neckties, and they feel comfortable with those who are already represented or given to them by another white person. You recommend if the only black person you know came as a recommendation from all the white people you know, they probably are not speaking on behalf of our community.
Yeah,
Those people are probably the most palatable black person that those white folk could take.
I like that word you use, palatable. There's certain things they will not tolerate as much. So you are
Yeah.
absolutely correct about that. All right, so let's talk about the future. So now you want the black male voice to be heard in 2024. So what type of Black history do you want to see change in the future? Where do you want to see it going next?
Yeah, I want some of the people to be celebrated, and we're getting to a point where we're celebrating our artists and folk that are more than folk that are just freedom fighters. I want black people to be celebrated for all aspects of life, so people can see us as a whole, not just people who are fighting for equity. And in order to get there, I want an equitable existence for black people in the future. One that says uh, we this happened in the past, reparations was allowed to rectify it or help adjust it, and now we see black people existing in this space where there's equity, not equality, equity, right? And I think people forget that we deserve equity, and I think so in the future, for me, a black history or a black future that is based on equity is the only way I think I could be happy with life.
I love it. I love it. It we need to see that at the table, and not just a little piece of the pie. It's like we need to be talking about everything that's going on, and you put words right into action. So hopefully we can just get a little bit more of that momentum all the way around. Uh, excuse me, man. But you made me think about football when you said that. You talk about how things look normal, and I'm down here in Atlanta, and the Falcons just hired Raheem Morris, who was a football coach here already, and he had already had a head coaching job, and now he's a retread. And to me, that's like, oh, this is progress, because we didn't used to have retreads. It used to be one time
Right,
and you out. And I'm like, that
right,
that is some real progress. And then on the flip side of things, it's like there are a few backup quarterbacks. My guy Tyrod Taylor, who can't seem to never get a fair shake when he needs it, but he's been on 5, 6 different teams, and that wasn't a thing before. So something is changing in the air. So I
mm,
just want to see it kind of across, because some people look at sports as like a microcosm of what's going on in society, and sometimes I can see hints of that here and there. But that's what it made me think of.
that's what's up.
I guess like before I get you up out of here, is there anybody in Black history that you want to talk about, or any Black history fact that you might want to share with the audience and get them a little taste of what you know?
Yeah, it's interesting that I was a couple things happened. We were talking about the elite black people, the boule, so all of these people, the boule, the idea of the boule came from W. Du Bois and the talented tenth, right? Where the top 10% of black people would be responsible for saving all of the folk, and a lot of folk that will, that adhere to this idea and this ideology forgets that they tend to forget that W. Du Bois actually stepped away from that thinking, like it's not realistic, it wasn't gonna happen, and he saw that sometimes once people got bourgeoisie, they forgot about what their brothers or what it meant to be exist in that space. So the rejection of the boule, not the boule per se, but the talented tenth that showed up in that manner, that they are here to save black people. is a powerful rejection. And I also that W. Du Bois has this crazy linkage to my life because when I was talking about when I found out we were poor, part of the way I was doing like learning and reading, I said was when I was 13. Yeah, 13. I got like an apple or something for Christmas, and I'm looking at my mom and dad like, "Why I get an apple? Can I get a toy like a regular kid?" And my mom was like, "Just be happy you got anything." Now, keep in mind, I'm one of 13, so
Mm,
um, that night when they thought everybody was asleep, I heard my mom crying profusely, like crying about how embarrassed I made her feel, and I heard my dad's silence. He always had an answer for something, so when he was silent, I knew I had did some serious damage, and that was the last time I actually asked my parents for anything. Till this day, I've never asked my parents for any gift or anything since that day, and I began that spring to try to help them out. Like back then, you could recycle. Pepsi is from North Carolina. You could recycle glass bottles for like 15 cents a bottle. So I used to dumpster dive for bottles to try to help my parents out, like with bills or with money or whatever. And I found W. Du Bois, The Souls of Black Folk, in that book. And I was like 14. And I felt at that time, like now as an adult, I know I didn't fully understand the concepts of what he was talking about. But that book changed the trajectory of my life because he said something about being a race man, someone who's concerned with the lived experience and what black people suffer through. And ever since that day, I've been considering myself a race man. So uh, that that me being in a dumpster found that gem that was The Souls of Black Folk, which is an early book. I think it was written in the late 1800s by W. Du Bois, who rejected this idea that it is the job of the talented tenth to protect the rest of the black community. And I think this is what I'm doing at Black Male Voter Pride, reminding people that those black men that you're comfortable with are not speaking for the 90% of black men who don't see themselves in what they're saying and what you're saying electorally. So history still repeating itself, and me still fighting what W. Du Bois once created and also then stepped away from is a powerful reminder that we must teach ourselves so as to prevent repetition.
mm. That is that's very useful to know, and I don't think people talk enough about that part. What you said, which he stepped away from that thinking. It's always the reference of the bourgeoisie, and then that's it. So I appreciate you sharing that with me and the audience. Um, I will say this: I do not believe in coincidences. So hearing you tell that story, it just confirms another one for me. There's no such thing as coincidences. Everything happens for a reason. I could talk all day about that, but that's a whole nother subject. Uh, Mr. Mondale Robinson, I do very much appreciate your time. Um, can you tell the people how to get in touch with you? Um, how they can get involved. They can help the Black Male Voter Project. And to help us advance the cause.
Yeah, I mean, Mondale Robinson on all social media platforms, and YouTube, and I also produce content for Rebel HQ over at TYT. Um, but if you want to get involved with Black Male Voter Project, and we definitely need that, you can go to our website. There's a donation page. We take donations through ActBlue, and our address is up there, so you can mail us support as well. And brother, thank you so much for having me. It's been a delight today. I appreciate it.
No, thank you, man. And I appreciate everyone out there for listening and watching. Um, I am CL Palmer. Y'all stay blessed.